ザ・スタンリー・パラブル・ウルトラ・デラックスやっていきましょう。どうもなるぼんです。今回からザ・スタンリー・パラブルやっていこうと思います。簡単に説明していくと、まずスタンリーっていうキャラクターをナレーションの声指示に従って操作していく。まずその指示にはね従わなくてもいいわけだけども、それによってゲームのエンディングが変わってきたりしますよっていうゲームらしい。でその前にちょっと謝罪というか謝らなきゃいけないことが一つありまして、一回ね俺これ撮影したんだよ、このゲーム。今日もザ・スタンリー・パラブルやっていきましょうっつって動画撮影したんだけど撮れてなかったね。だからね3パターンぐらい俺一人でやってしまったんよ。で調べたところによるとエンディングって18種類あって、はい、3種類、6分の1しかやってねえから、ギリセーフだろっつって2回目撮影しようと思います。今回からね、18パートぐらいに分けて、1パートずつ紹介していこうと思います。では始めていきましょう。
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
来た。これはスタンリーという名の男。
Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number
427番ね。
Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on the keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and this is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy.
なるほどね。それで幸せ、本当に。
And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
書いてねこれ。もういいや。とりあえず一番最初はシンプルなルートをやっていこうか。俺が一番最初にやったルート、もうナレーションの指示にめっちゃ従ってくる。俺本当はね人の指示に従うことが一番嫌いやけど、今回ばかりは許す。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
会議室へ向かう。ちょっとなんかこういうさなんかいろいろ触りたくなんだよな。多動症だからさ。多動症だからマジで全部触りたくなっちゃうんだよ。一番最初はねこのナレーションの指示に従ってちゃんと動こう。
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
この世で最も嫌いなこと、人の指示に従うことで、ちょっと喉が枯れちゃった。人の指示に従うことが俺一番嫌いだからさ。
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
上司の部屋ね。OK。上の階にある上司の部屋。行こうか、じゃあ上司の部屋。
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
下ね、俺このルートは行ったことないんだよ、下ルート。いいや、今回ばかりは上司の部屋向かうか。バスルームトイレか。なんか書いてあるな。けど俺英語読めねえからさ。Money in the morning, money in the evening, money for breakfast, money crisp。なるほど。お金大好きってことね。OK。理解した。 とりあえず上司の部屋、ここだね。上司の部屋。
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
でも俺そんなこと知ってるわけないからさ、触んない方がいいんじゃね？今、なんか丸出たの？なんだ？俺、触んない方がいいんじゃない？ 2845 って入れない方がいいんじゃない？
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was 2845.
まあいいや。いや、入れない方がいい気がすんだよな。だってさ、スタンリーはそんなこと知るわけないじゃん。
2845.
まあ、ナレーション指示従うか。
Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
はいはいはい。なんこれ？なんかさ、あの映画に似てるよな。ちょっとタイトル忘れちゃったけどさ、なんだっけ？自分だけがさ、自分だけが本物だと思ってたけど、周りは全員、演技をしてたみたいな映画。なんだっけ？ちょっと、編集の時に多分貼ってるわ。真ん中に、画面のところに。まあ、とりあえず、行ってみるか。エレベーター。なんか、あれだな。
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself.
ちょっと音うるせえ。ちょっとだけ先、俺の声があんま入んない気がする。これでどう？ちょっとうるせえ。ちょっとうるせえ。俺の声がメインだぞ。ふざけるな、ナレーター。ちょっと小さいか。75だな。すまんね。ちょっと俺実況中にもこんなことするからさ。すまん。許して。助け。あ。
Whoops. Nope. Never mind. Stanley actually got back into the elevator and went back up. Why did Stanley do that when he knew that it would just lead back to his boss's office? Well, that's a great question. I just can't wait to find out.
ミス。普通にミスった。ナレーターのあれに従おうと思ったよ。まあいいや、下下がろう。あれ俺触れなくなっちゃった。あれもうダメだ。俺多動症すぎてルート変わっちゃった。
Here we are, Stanley. It's your boss's office. Exactly the way it was before you got onto the elevator. It's still just exactly what it is. What a decision you've made to come up here and look at the office again. This has fleshed out the plot of the story in new and fascinating ways I could have never anticipated. It's that keen eye for storytelling that you have. An incisive rapid fire of critical plot points, one after the other, weaving a rich tapestry of uncompromising narrative. Wow. I'm bolted to the edge of my seat.
一回戻る。嫌なんだけど俺最初にもう戻れるわ。ごめん、ちょっと戻るわ。
Incredible. Now he's getting back into the elevator and going down again. Ladies and gentlemen, how does he keep coming up with all of this?
ごめん、多動症なんだ。許して。
Surely this time Stanley will walk forward into the spooky corridor, won't he? Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
ちょっとこっち側行ってみたいけど、まあいいや。今回だけはちょっとちゃんとしたルート行こう。今回だけね。次からは なんかいろんな自由に
The
奔放に
lights
歩いているこ
rose
と
on
も。
an enormous room packed with television screens.
はいはいはい。なんだ
What
これ。
horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
へえ。なんかバイオにもこんな部屋なかった？バイオハザード。なかったかな。カメラ
Now the monitors jumped to life. Their true nature revealed. Each
427
bore the number
あっ
of
た
an employee in the building. Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen.
監視されてたんだ、すべ
One
て。
of them eternally
やられ
monitored
た。
in this place where freedom meant nothing.
俺はモルモットってこと？俺は小さいカゴの中に生き続けていただけの
This
退屈な人間だ
mind-controlled
ったってこと？
facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this
なんだって？
time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly?
なんかすげえくるくる回ったら。
No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible?
モルモットってこと？
Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the
なんかいろいろある。
proof, the heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over
いや、
another
ここもなんかあ
human
りそうだ
life.
な。
For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
ごめんな、俺ちょっとなんかいろんなものに集中しすぎて、意識が散漫としすぎてさ、あれだわ、なんか全然話聞いてなかった。なんだって。まあ、後でまた触りに行こうよ、ここは。後でっていうか、まあ、次のパート、いや、なんか、何パート目かで触りに行く。
And when at last he found the source of the room's power, he knew it was his duty, his obligation, to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood for.
わかった。OK。じゃあ、オフ押すか。ナレターの指示に従って。どうなった？いや、今回だけね。他はもういいや。他はもういいや。俺の自由を、俺の自
And
由
a
や。
rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over?
Was it over? なんだ？
He had won. He had defeated the
なるほど、
machine.
勝ちだ。
Unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And
ああ、なるほど、
yet,
勝ち
even
だ。
as the immense door slowly opened,
勝ったわ、俺は。
Stanley reflected
世界
on
に
how
勝っ
many
たんだよ、俺は。
puzzles still lay unsolved.
世界の負け、俺の勝ち以上。
How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building
はいはい
hold?
はい。
But as sunlight
これがね、
streamed into the
僕が
chamber,
一周
he
目にも
realized none of this mattered
1回目
to
の
him.
撮影でやっ
For
た
it was
フ
not
リーダム
knowledge
エンド
or
ってや
even
つ。
power that he had been seeking, but happiness.
おっせ
Perhaps his goal had not been to
ー。行くの
understand,
おせー。
but to let go.
登れよ、ジャンプし
No
ろよ、スタン
longer
リ
would
ー。
anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel.
はいはいはい。
Whatever life he lives, it will
俺
be
鳥かごの
his.
中にいたってこと？
And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door.
その日、人類は思い出した。奴らに支配されていた恐怖を。鳥かごの中に囚われていた屈辱を。では、外の世界に足踏み入れていくか。あばよー。
Stanley
ゆっ
felt
くり
the
やった。
cool breeze upon his
ルパン
skin,
ぐらい走っていくか
the
と思ったらめ
feeling
っ
of
ちゃゆっくりやったわ。
liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to
脱サ
happen.
ラしたってこと？
And Stanley was happy.
いいね、スタンリー今日からニートやん。俺と一緒や。仲間仲間。 お、終わった。というわけで、まずね、最初のルート、フリーダムエンドがね、終わったということで、フリーダムエンドが終わったっておかしいな。フリーダムエンドを見れたってことでね、今回、まあ、初投稿じゃないな、俺ショートでちょっと出してるわ。まあね、最初の実況にしたらなんかいい感じにできたんじゃないかな。うん。では、一旦終わろうかな。うん、バイバイ。